Hey, Sunrise family. Oh, I hate that we can't be together here this Sunday. 2 weeks in a row. I can't even remember when the last time we had to do something like this. But praying that you are staying safe and staying warm, enjoying some time with God at home, time with family. But I want to take a moment and just kind of pause for a second. We're in the middle of this series on the book of Daniel. We're calling it Uncompromised Faith. It's really what Daniel teaches us. Daniel is living in a time in a land where compromise is all around him. And yet somehow Daniel stays true to God and his leading. Not only did Daniel stay true, but his impact and his influence touched the lives of others. We see the story of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. We're going to be talking about it this coming Sunday, about their incredible faith when they didn't back down to severe outside pressure to compromise. Matter of fact, in this story, we'll look at King Nebuchadnezzar, who honored Daniel for his incredible interpretation of his the king's dream in Daniel chapter 2. As time goes on, he goes back to this self-centered reflection, this self-centered leadership. And he creates an image to himself, and he orders everybody to bow down, to everybody to worship him as a God. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they know that this is a moment of compromise, so they refuse. But the problem is there is severe consequence in this moment. It's not just being an outcast, not just people snickering at them or looking down on them. The king had ordered that they would be thrown into a fiery furnace, that they would die for this stance if they did not bow to the king. But look what happens. After Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they say no to the king and yes to God. The king is furious with them, and he calls them before and he tells them all the things that will happen to them if they refuse to bow. In verse 16 of chapter 3 of Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they replied to the king, "O Nebuchadnezzar, we do not need to defend ourselves before you in this matter." Who are these guys that they can look at the king and say, we don't answer to you? They understood we answer to God, because they go on and says, if we are thrown into the blazing furnace, the God we serve is able to save us from it, and he will rescue us from our hand. They had this confidence that God could and would save them. But in verse 18, look what they say next. It says, but even if he does not, we want you to know, O king, that we will not serve your gods or worship the image of God that you have set up. Didn't matter to them. They were saying, listen, God can do whatever he wants to do. If he wants to save us, he can save us. If he wants us to face the consequences of our stance, and we'll face that. But there is nothing that the king or any outside influence could do to make these three young men compromise their faith. See, I read that and I immediately go into a time of reflection and say, can I do that? Am I willing to be like a Daniel? Am I willing to be like a Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who are facing not just pressure, they're facing persecution. They're facing death in this moment. And yet, here they are going, it doesn't matter. See, for them, it didn't matter the circumstance. Wasn't that it was a big thing? It wasn't if it was a little thing. They just wanted to honor God in all things. So how are you doing in your faith? How are you living out a uncompromised faith in a culture that just does? It wants to pull you from it. I want to encourage you, take some time, think through some aspects of your life. Try to ask God, say, God, where is culture pulling me? Where am I drifting more to the world and less to you? Where is in the workplace or in family and friend groups are opportunities to compromise where we're going along with the flow? Maybe we're involving ourselves in things that we know that aren't honoring God, but they keep the peace with man. Where is our desire being pulled to? Are we being pulled towards the things of God? Or maybe we're getting pulled towards the things of this world where we're focused on gaining, material gain, wealth gain, status gain, where we want more and more from this world and less from God's world. So take some time as we have this snowy weekend ahead of us and this business of the week ahead. Take time to hit pause for a moment. Ask God to show you where you're maybe compromising your faith. so that you and I can stand firm on the word of God, like our friends Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. We look forward to seeing you back here next week. God bless.